Nietzsche and the personal factor, philosophy as self-confession. Nietzsche, philosophy was never an abstract detached discipline. It was always deeply personal. He rejected the illusion of objectivity, arguing that every idea, every moral stance, and every philosophical system ultimately reveals something about the person who creates it. As he put it, Nietzsche saw philosophy not as an impersonal pursuit of truth, but as an autobiographical confession. Whether consciously or unconsciously, every thinker exposes their own psychology, their struggles, their strengths, and their weaknesses through their work. 1. The inescapability of the personal factor. Nietzsche insisted that one cannot avoid writing about oneself. Even when a philosopher presents a seemingly neutral or objective argument, they are always expressing their own perspective, their own temperament, their own life experience. This is a revolutionary claim. It means that philosophical systems are not just about reason. They are about the philosopher's emotions, instincts, health, and personal history. A philosopher does not simply discover truth, they project themselves onto the world. Example, Kant and the categorical imperative. Nietzsche's critique of Immanuel Kant is a perfect example of how he applied this psychological method. Kant's categorical imperative, his belief in universal moral laws, was not just an intellectual argument. Instead, Nietzsche saw it as a psychological reflection of Kant's rigid, orderly, and disciplined personality. 1. Kant lived a highly structured, repetitive life. He took the same walk at the same time every day. 2. His strict sense of duty was not a rational discovery, but a personal need. 3. His morality was not universal truth, but a reflection of his own internal psychological order. Kant did not find morality. He invented a system that suited his own temperament. 2. Nietzsche's self-confession. Writing as overcoming. If every philosopher's work is a personal confession, then what does Nietzsche's work say about him? Unlike most thinkers, Nietzsche was brutally honest about his own personal connection to his philosophy. He did not pretend to be neutral. He fully embraced that his work was a reflection of his struggles, his pain, and his victories. This is why his work is so intense, emotional, and poetic. It is not just theory, it is his own self-overcoming, a record of his personal battles. He openly admitted that his greatest philosophical expressions, Zarathustra, his critique of morality, his celebration of the will to power, were all about himself. Nietzsche suffered greatly, both physically and mentally. His chronic illnesses, migraines, and social isolation shaped his philosophy. He knew that merely listing his pain would make him a melancholy author. So instead, he turned his suffering into philosophy, transforming it into something powerful. This was his challenge, not to dwell on suffering, but to turn it into strength. 3. The teacher as a living example. Nietzsche saw himself as part of a long tradition of philosophers who did not just teach with words, but through their very lives. He admired the ancient Greek philosophers, who embodied their philosophy rather than just writing about it. Unlike modern academics who separate theory from practice, the Greek philosophers lived as examples. Their very existence demonstrated their philosophy, their discipline, their way of eating, their manner of speaking. Nietzsche demanded the same of himself. He despised empty intellectualism, where thinkers write about ideas that they do not embody in their own lives. This is why he later turned against his former idol, Arthur Schopenhauer. 4. The critique of Schopenhauer. A philosopher who did not live his philosophy, Nietzsche once admired Schopenhauer for his brutally honest pessimism. But later, he realized that Schopenhauer's life did not match his ideas. 1. Schopenhauer preached detachment, yet he was filled with resentment and rage. 2. He argued that life is meaningless yet he held on to life and avoided suffering. 3. He believed in self-denial, yet he enjoyed wealth, comfort, and status. This contradiction made Nietzsche lose respect for him. A philosopher who does not live their ideas is a hypocrite. This is why Nietzsche was willing to criticize himself, because he believed that true philosophers must constantly test and challenge their own ideas. 5. Nietzsche's own self-critique, ad hominem against himself. Nietzsche did not spare himself from the psychological method he used against others. He was painfully aware of his own contradictions and weaknesses. He admitted that, 1. He was physically weak, yet worshipped strength. 2. He was socially isolated, yet preached about aristocratic superiority. 3. He suffered from illness and depression, yet taught self-overcoming. He even called himself a decadent, realizing that his own body and health contradicted his ideal of the Übermensch. But unlike other thinkers, Nietzsche did not run from this contradiction. He faced it head-on. 1. He did not pretend to be a pure Übermensch. 2. He used his suffering as a weapon. 3. He turned weakness into strength. His philosophy was his own self-overcoming, his way of proving that even the weak, the sick, the suffering, if they have the right mindset, can become powerful. 6. The Nietzschean challenge. Question yourself. Nietzsche's greatest lesson is not just to question others, but to question yourself. 1. Why do you believe what you believe? 2. How much of your philosophy is shaped by your own experiences? 3. Are your ideas truly yours, or are they just defenses against your weaknesses? For Nietzsche, true philosophy is brutal honesty, not just about the world, but about yourself. Nietzsche is not just a philosopher to be read, he is a philosopher to be fought with. Are you ready for that fight?